Hello there, ladies and gentlemen. This is Orphanlast, aka Skylar Madison, and today I'm coming at you with another Noblefrugal Studio collaboration video, and it's going to be a good one. I really like this video. I had a lot of fun with it. In the series, I go ahead and I paint out a background here, and once I'm finished with this background, I'm going to go ahead and submit it over to Noblefrugal Studio, and he has a channel on YouTube where it's primarily focused on open tunes, just like my channel. And once he gets this background, he's going to go ahead and animate a complex scene using open tunes. So if you guys would like to take a look at that, or generally take a look at his channel, I do recommend his teaching style and all that good stuff. Feel free to take a look. There's a link inside of the video description below that you can take a look at, and all that good stuff. Like, this is there was the video where I put in the shadows, and this background started to really pop for the very first time, ever since finishing the sketching and all that. And this is the next big step here, this video. And it's kind of surprising just what a little bit of work with the sky can do for an image. And it really did a lot. It really did. Now, here, I do a little bit of work on the ground. The whole time that I was working on the ground, I was, I really didn't even want to work on this background this week, to be honest. Here I am working on the ground. I'm like, oh, great. Now I need to find out how to create a texture for the grass. How the heck am I going to do that? Now, I have an idea now, after the fact, after having made this video and having thought about it for a number of days. But when I was making the video, I was just like, forget it. And here I am putting texture on this sidewalk, and I just keep on looking up at the sky as I'm panning around and thinking, something needs to be done about that. That looks horrible. I just need to do something with the sky, and that's what I mainly focused on, and it wound up actually looking really good. I'm really happy with the results. Most of the stuff that I did with the sky was just, I found a brush that looked just like, looked somewhat cloud-like, and started scribbling, and then I found a brush that basically just pushes paint around. It's just this little smear brush, and just use that, and it wound up really coming together. Now, I got a message from Noblefrugal Studio, first time in a long time actually. He said, yeah, the background's looking really nice and all that. What story do you want for the background, like for this animation? I really have let him take charge with this series. I asked him what type of buildings he wanted, what type of architecture. He picked out the architecture, and I ultimately, he's the guy that's going to be animating on this thing. So I wanted this to be something he wanted to work on. He gave me this 1800 style architectural buildings to work on, and so I made those, and I figured he might have an idea as to what he wanted to make a story about, or if he just wanted it to just be a complex animated scene, like just kids playing jump rope in the street, a few people walking down the street to make it look like it's a lived-in world, and a wagon driving down the street, and the camera panning, doing a full 180 degrees. But if he really wants to have a story, I suggested to him an idea. Of course, this is not anything that he's obligated to do. It's ultimately it's up to him what he wants to work on. I'm not gonna just say, no, this is the story and you have to do it. I'm not doing that. The idea that I presented to him was this: instead of the street being as occupied as I originally thought it would be, maybe having a few people walking around in the street, have a wagon driving through this town and going fairly fast, and it basically, it trailing behind it, some guy tied on a rope being dragged against the road and everything, and somehow this guy gets free, and that guy is the main character. And once he gets free, he gets up, and a bunch of people inside of the wagon come out and start fighting him or something, or maybe he just starts running really fast, and maybe goes into the first building that I drew in the series. It's that building that right there with the gray pillars. And the red on the front of the building, and kind of like the yellow and brown brick. That would be interesting to see him go into there. I could even supply a few more assets, such as the door opening. Where he can just go ahead and insert a level that just has that door that just kind of covers the door that's currently existing there, so that it looks like the door opens. And then I can even have like several different versions of the door opening so that it's animated. But if he's running, it's going to be slam. It'd be maybe 3 frames maximum, really quick. Then there'd be the camera would be panning up this building, and it'd be kind of interesting to hear sound effects where you hear people getting punched and people getting pushed out the windows. So I could have I could create a few more duplicate windows here and there that like the window is totally normal, and then a version of the window that's broken that he could go ahead and overlay on top. And that would give him some practice with like breaking glass effects. And that would be kind of cool to see, and probably is something that he might want to work on. I don't know. It's all up to him. And once he gets onto the roof, there's only one bad guy left, and they kind of have a little bit of confrontation, and then the main character pile drives into him, and they become airborne and land on the building to the left of the building that I'm working on right now. The one that looks like a yellow castle. That would be, with a kind of pyramid-looking rooftop. And then he lands on top of the bad guy. Then he gets up after several seconds and says, "Thanks for breaking my fall." And then that's the end of the video. That would be interesting. But again, I don't really want to create this story for Noblefrugal Studio that he doesn't even want to work on. I just want something that is fun to work on for him, as well as something that he would actually would like to work on, and that would benefit both of our channels. That is what I want. I don't want to impose anything. Now, for the sun, I created a blob, a circular blob that's white, and applied a really strong Gaussian blur to it. And then I created a yellow circle and applied a really strong Gaussian blur to that. And then I used the same kind of smear brush tool to kind of create the sun rays. Now, I'm using the exact same. I'm using the assistant tool as well. I'm using the same assistant that I created for the sun that I created for the shadows, and it went really smooth. Once I noticed that all of my sun rays were looking pretty dang uniform, I wound up reducing the size of it a little bit. Showed this to my friend, the image, and he says, "Well, that sun is a little bit dramatic." I'm like, "What, you want me to kind of make it less crazy?" And he goes, "Yeah, and it's just a little too strong." And I lowered the opacity of the sun. He goes, "Yeah, there, that right there, that's perfect." What did you do? Like, that was a huge change to the image with one click of the mouse. And I said I lowered its opacity, and he's just like, I don't even know what that means, but that's slick. Now, inside of this video, I also kind of experimented a little bit with highlights. Now, what you're seeing on the screen right now is at 100 times speed because I wanted to include it to show, hey, look, I am kind of figuring things out here. And it's not like any of the things that I'm doing right here is bad. In fact, some of this stuff looks dang good as highlights and all that. But I applied a blending mode to my brush. And for some reason, doing that, it made it so that it actually wound up covering up my already established lines. Maybe it wouldn't cover up my already established lines if I was actually on the layer that actually had all of the artwork on it and not on an empty layer. Maybe that's what I needed to do, or something. I don't know. For some reason, it just... The problem with that, though, if I'm working on the layer that has all of the artwork, is that is destructive editing. And if you've gone like 30 or 40 different, strokes with your stylus, you might not have enough undo options to fix what you screwed up. So eventually I wound up deleting all of this and started from scratch with the highlights. And I used a blending mode. Now most people, they use multiply, I believe, in order to do their highlights, but I really did not want to use that blending mode because it didn't seem to be working the same way as it does on Photoshop. And so what I used instead was color dodge, and I applied a very, very light yellow as a highlight to everything, and that seemed like it worked really well. Now, I'm not really inside of the footage quite there yet. You'll see when I start over again, and then things will slow down slightly to 10 times speed right here. This is where I started over again with the highlights, and I'm just kind of experimenting. Now notice how my brush is also at a very low opacity. Now I'm working on a layer that has a blending mode, rather than having the blending mode applied to my brush. That way it's not so frustrating. And so I feel like this doesn't quite necessarily, like, in some areas it looks better, and in other areas it looked better the original way that I did it. And some of that is because of the brush that I was using the first time around versus the brush that I used the second time around. However, the brush that I used the first time around really just didn't work out. It didn't work with the blending mode that I applied to this layer at all. It really didn't. For some reason, the color dodge blending mode just didn't work with the charcoal brush that I was using. And so I went ahead and just used a brush that was more like kind of an airbrush. And it looks nice and all that, but it doesn't quite have the same texture. But for the windows, especially, for that nice reflective glow that windows tend to have, it really makes the windows pop pretty well. Even inside of the shadows, like you don't want to apply as much, because it's of a reflection as you would outside of the shadows and stuff. I wanted it to really shine inside of the sun, but like there is a reflective quality to glass, regardless of if you're working on something that's in shadow or not. And so that was pretty fun to work on, really fun to do right there. And this specific video was a learning process in general, where I had to look at David Revo's tutorial on blending modes versus a tutorial on Photoshop. And if you guys use Krita, if you're a competent artist and you guys use Krita, do you notice if the same blending modes that exist in Photoshop work differently instead of Krita, because at least for me, like, Multiply just simply, purely and simply did not work for the highlights. So, you know, that would be, like, seriously, if you are somebody who uses Krita and Photoshop on a regular basis, or if you can compare the two and such like that, have you noticed anything different with blending modes? Because I don't know, maybe I just have a subjective perception. I personally, I've used nothing but Photoshop for a really long time, and I really genuinely and truly love Krita. There are some irritations with it, such as how you apply masks and stuff like that, but and the blending modes seem to behave a little bit differently, but other than that, I love Krita. Like, I don't really have any major complaints about it. It'd just be nice to get some feedback from somebody who might know and such like that. So yeah, we're coming close to the end of the video, and you know, at the very end of the video you get to see that you know, the recap where you're able to see the image from the last video and then the image at the end of this video. And I really think that the change that I did to the sidewalk and the sun and the reflections, just those three things, made a huge difference. Now, the thing is, to make the image really truly pop, I need to now add contrast, which is the you know, the things that aren't highlights. I've added shadows, but I haven't added the darkest darks. I haven't really truly done any shading yet at all in this image. It's all just been pretty much flats for my shadows and highlights. That's pretty much most of what I've done. I've added a few textures here and there, and not really highlights. I've done a little bit of highlights with color, messing around with the color palette, but nothing significant. And wow, I would sell a print of this. Anyways, guys, that pretty much concludes it for this video. If you guys enjoyed it, please like, share, and subscribe. And if you didn't like it, please like, share, and subscribe anyways. And if you would like to take a look at any of my other videos, feel free to click on any of the videos appearing on the screen right now. Peace!